Let me give you a quick rundown on who's here,
Okay.
just so you have an idea, and it will sort of help you maybe because I'm going to have them ask you some questions. No, look at Bill with his books behind him, all of his books that he's written. That's great. I like it.
These are the books I've written. These are the books that I have copies of that I've coached other people to get contracts for, including one for $100,000.
Nice.
Cool.
Who got the $100,000 contract? Which book?
A guy in Switzerland. He's a business consultant. He came to my bootcamp, publishing bootcamp, and he had this briefcase behind him, which was about this thick, and filled with. He said, "This is all I have written, and I cannot make a book of this. But if I make a book, I think it will succeed." And he knew he had a reception for his book publishing, for the book being published at UBS Bank in Switzerland. He has a lot of high and so they knew it was going to sell well in the corporate market because he was a corporate consultant. And a friend of his said, he got $100,000 for that. I said, "He never told me what he got for it. That's more than I."
Where's my piece? Where's my piece?
Really, no
So anyway, let me give you the quick rundown on everybody who's here. Bill DeWeese, who's sitting to my right. Bill is a voiceover artist.
We spoke on the phone.
Yes. Okay. So Bill is here. Andrew Heimers. Andrew is a relationship sort of expert consultant, specifically dealing with men, and he has written, check this out, 480,000 words, 800,000 words.
Now it's just yesterday.
That was just yesterday.
Before lunch.
Before lunch. But the only problem is nothing is in any kind of discernible order. It's just sort of a lot of stuff.
A lot of great ideas, but not put together. It's like the guy from Switzerland. He
Yeah.
had all this material, but no book from
So are you telling him he's going to get a $100,000 advance?
Well, that would be nice.
Hold on, guys.
I'm not telling him that, no.
Okay. Okay, then we've got Joanna Falk. And Joanna, she works to show teachers how to do stuff better with their students K through 12, how to deal with difficult students, all that sort of stuff. And she also has a network of other. She works for. She does some work with a company where she sells their products. So she's trying to develop some of her own, and she's trying to make it so that she can. She's got a network of other teachers that she can recruit and get paid for, almost like. And by the way, have you been using your video email?
A little.
Okay. Because, by the way, there's a glitch going on right now with the Mac. But anyway, so she's excited about that. So she's got sort of teaching teachers and the whole learning system. And Michael Potter, who is a former military guy, also has got his law degree and teaches classes for Trump University and does stuff with regards to asset protection.
Good.
So we have a very illustrious group here.
Really?
Yes. And
Good.
and so what I wanted to do is have you talk to them about, since I know everything about self-publishing and you know everything about traditional publishing, I think probably good for you to give a little, just sort of a little mini, let's do a 15, 20 minute sort of on the publishing business, and then we'll open it up.
Okay, great. Sounds good. Well, I will say a couple of things. One is about several weeks ago, I just got my newest print book in the mail, Quick Steps to Resolving Trauma, published by W.W. Norton. And I also got a Spanish translation from my book, Change 101, which came out a couple of years ago. So those just came in the mail, and I thought I'd share those to you. And just yesterday, I finished my 31st book. I've just submitted it to the publisher yesterday. And it'll be published by Routledge later in 2011. What Fred and I have talked about is I was totally clueless in publishing land. I didn't know anybody who published a book. I didn't know anybody who had written a book. I, a bit like a few of you, was a little scattered. I had lots of ideas. It wasn't that I didn't have ideas, but I did not know how to put them together, make a book, get that book published. I didn't really know the first thing about it. And I stumbled my way. I was clueless in publishing land. I stumbled my way through it. But I had two assets. One is I have a great deal of passion, which I heard in most of the introductions that Fred gave me to you. I had a great deal of passion for what I did. I was excited about it or pissed off about something that I wanted to change, one of those two, or some combination of it. And I was determined to change the world. That is, to make my contribution to the world. So that was one asset I had. Even though I was clueless, didn't know what I was doing, I had passion. That is really important. I hear that in a lot of what Fred told me about you. You have a desire to make a contribution, some good ideas that you think would be good to have out there in the world influencing people. So that was my first thing. The second thing I had was persistence. I just did not stop till I made it, till I made it happen. And I made a lot of mistakes. I left, Fred and I were talking about this when he was visiting, I left easily hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table of both in the direct publishing, but also what Fred specializes in, the indirect income one can get from publishing. Now, I did get indirect income. It's not like I didn't make any money, but I could have made a lot more if I'd known what I was doing. I could have done it a lot quicker if I'd known what I was doing. If I had an expert like Fred, like me, to kind of show me the way through this publishing maze, the self-publishing or the print publishing maze. When should I do what? What should I do? How do I start? How do I approach this stuff? How do I organize myself to write? How do I organize myself to get a book? And every year I go to this same conference on Hilton Head, which I'll be going to. Actually, it starts on Monday. I leave tomorrow, and I do a lunchtime session, which is just an informal answer questions about how to write a book and get it published with another faculty member there who's written for Xena, the Warrior Princess, and she's written a couple of nonfiction and a couple of fiction books too. So we stand up there and we answer questions from people, and she always starts out and says, now, first thing I have to say is in order to be a writer and to be a published writer, you have to love writing. And I have to bite my tongue because for my first 17 books, I did not like to write. I only liked to have written. I didn't like the process of writing at all. I loved getting it out there. I loved getting it done when it was finally finished. But the process was torturous for me. It wasn't natural. I'm really good. It's like rolling off a log. To speak to people, to talk is easy for me. To write was not easy for me. It's become easier over the years. When I hit my, I don't mean to discourage you because I think most of you will be better at it than I am. I think I was a hard case. It took me 17 books to find my process. And partly because I didn't go to any of these publishing boot camps or learn anything from anybody else, I stumbled through it on my own. And partly because it's easier for me to speak than to write. I finally found my process, but more than that, I knew my next book would be published, and it was more exciting to write a book when you know you can get it out there and you can get it in print, for me. So that's, I guess, the beginnings of it. I learned a couple of things along the way. One is that there are two types of print books. One is sort of a small press print book, which, you know, I'm trained as a psychotherapist, so I don't need an agent for that kind of book, for a psychotherapy book for psychotherapists. But like in your relationship stuff that you're writing about, if you want to write for the general public, you either need to go Fred's route and self-publish in print or self-publish online, or you need to go through an agent. And so I learned that over the years, that there are two kinds of print publishing. One is a small press one, where it's a specialized press, or it's a university press, or something you don't need an agent. And then the second kind of print publishing is a lot higher stakes. That is, the money's a lot more, and the stakes are a lot higher, and there's more people that want to do it. So there's more competition, and you need an agent to represent you to the big publishers. And so I learned about the differences between those. So I learned the business parts of it, and the second thing I learned about the business part of it is that what sells books is somewhat the idea of the book, but it's somewhat what they call in publishing land your platform. That is, how many people can you get access to when the book is out? How many people can you let know? What kind of reputation do you have? If you're Dr. Phil, you can write a book and publish a book on dieting. And, you know, look at Dr. Phil. And he doesn't look like he's an advertisement for dieting to me. But he has a great publishing platform because he has a television show, because it was on Oprah, because he has some best-selling books.
Speaking about being on Oprah, hold on. Weren't you on Oprah?
I was on Oprah. I was on Oprah for my book, Do One Thing Different. And I was the featured author on that show. And so, yeah, Fred, you got a copy of that?
I do. I'm getting it.
That sold a boatload of books, which really helped. And as Fred, stops me and says that, when I'm introduced as a speaker, almost always that's mentioned. And when it's mentioned, I notice the crowd sits up a little straighter. And that gives you credibility. So that is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of platform. Whatever you've accomplished in your life, whatever marketing abilities and channels you have, and whatever reputation you have, that's what they call platform. And what print publishers are looking for these days is platform. So what Fred is telling you in terms of developing your internet presence and your internet reputation will be, really, really helpful. Fred and I have been in conversation about him getting a print contract. And I just look at him and think, well, that's crazy, Fred. Of course you can get a print contract. It's very, very easy for you to get a print contract because you have a platform. And what publishers are going to be looking at is they're going to say, wow, this guy can get the word out to 40,000 people the day the book comes out or the month before the book comes out. He can offer incentives. He knows how to do websites. He can offer incentives for people. If they buy the book, he'll give them a bonus that'll be worth more than the book is worth. He can give them all sorts of incentives to buy the book so that they will be impressed with that ability. So if you're trying to get to teachers, how many teachers do you have on a mailing list? How many teachers can you get access to? Do you learn, or are you a member of any chat discussion groups that you can get the word of the book out? That's, I think, what, it's the idea of the book, the type. Obviously, the title and the subtitle, what the book is about is important. Your passion for the book and your platform. So those are the three things that I've learned. There's a bunch of other stuff, obviously, to say and to learn. And that's why you're here with Fred, is to learn a bunch of stuff. But the three things that I've learned that are essentials are have a platform, have passion, and then get some knowledge to develop your platform so you can sell this book. It's not enough to have the idea and the passion. It's not enough to persist. You really need to have a platform to sell the book.
This is the only one that I have sitting around that I can get a hold of. Is right as a verb. Let's open it up for questions. First off, let me give you my question, because Bill has been coaching me through the process of getting one of my books published. But the reason why I haven't been as gung-ho or as quick to respond is, here's my thinking.
All right.
The book is on this topic, called Sell Your Brain Power. I had a cover designed. I've got the book virtually written, which, by the way, you shouldn't do when you do a traditional book, and Bill will tell you about that. But what I keep balking at is the fact that I think that for this book, I can probably produce it myself, put it in ebook form, and just get a ton of distribution that maybe will be better for me and get it done quicker and faster. So my dilemma...
Why not do both?
Huh?
Why not do both?
Yeah. So in other words, but the thing is, here's my question then. You say that, if I get that one out first, will I still be able to, let's say I get a whole bunch of people, I get 100,000 people or 200,000 people to download that sucker. Will the publishing company now publish virtually the same book?
They either will or they won't. I think the person to look to is a guy named Corey Doctorow, and D-O-C-T-R-O.
I've heard that name, and I remember. I forget which book it is, though.
Well, he has a bunch of books. He's a science fiction writer, but what he's gotten known for in my world is that he's given away every one of his science fiction books for free online before they went to print, and he gets a traditional print publisher with an agent. He gets a traditional print publisher to then publish that book, and he sells a boatload more of them in print than he does online, partly because, now this was in the days before e-readers, so maybe the territory has changed, partly because people don't want to read them on the computer. They still want to read them in print, but they get exposed to his ideas through online stuff. Now, I think, there are a couple of considerations for you, Fred. One is you already have a lot of self-published books, so you want to go in a different direction. So I agree, you could do it more quickly because this process of self-publishing. You have a good platform to get things out there.
Yep.
You can distribute it, either sell it or give it away. But, I think it's time, you and I have talked about this, I think it's time for you to develop the credibility, which is another thing. Someone says to me, and this has happened to you, I bet, I'm at a party and they say, what do you do? And I say, well, I teach workshops and I, write books. And they go, oh, books, what books have you written that I've heard of? Well, I said, well, I got an Oprah with Do One Thing Different, and that impresses them. And they go, what book companies have you, published with? And I say, W.W. Norton, Penguin, Taylor and Francis, Rutledge, John Wiley and Sons, and I start, Harper Collins, and they go, oh, those are places, those are companies I've heard of. You're a real writer. And they go, like, I thought a real writer was the one with the little patches on their, on their elbows with the tweed jackets. But they think that it's a real writer if you have a New York legitimate publisher.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Gives you some credibility. And plus, I don't have to do the work. I don't have to do so much work. Not every sale is dependent on my actions when I have a traditional publisher. Now you hear, oh, they don't do anything for you anymore. You have to do all your own publicity. You always have to market yourself, no matter what you do, no matter what field you're in. You should always be a good marketer. But my book company got me on Oprah. I didn't get me on Oprah.
Well, when I come,
my book company got me on radio shows all over the place. I didn't get me on radio shows. I got me on other radio shows, but they did. So they'll do something for you. Plus, they give you money up front. When you self-publish, you're putting out a little money or a lot of money, depending on how you do it. You're hiring the you're hosting the website. You're designing the book cover. You're putting in a lot of time and sometimes a little money to put it out there. In the publishing company, in the publishing world, print publishing world, Fred and I have talked about this, money always rolls downhill towards the author. That is, if you find an agent and they say, oh, send me a $300 fee and I'll read your book and decide whether it's publishable. No. Money always rolls downhill in print publishing to the author, in traditional print publishing, not self-publishing, obviously. That's a different matter.
So I'm going to wait until I come see you. Bill and I are getting together. I'm flying out to see him December 17th for a couple days, and we'll have that. We'll finalize my decision on that, and I'll talk to you about that. So,
but I think a lot of book companies will let you do both these days because they know the power of the web. They know the power of reputation spreading, but some will balk.
Yep.
I will say that. Some will balk, and some will say that's not a viable model. You just can't do it.
Okay. So now let me open it up to the rest of the group here. So anybody have any questions?
I've got one.
Bill.
I'm sure this is a 101 question. I think I know Fred's answer to this, but Bill, I'd be curious to know. This is Bill DeWeese, by the way.
Yeah. You want to change can you change so I can see it? Thanks, Bill.
I'm backlit nicely here. You probably can't see my
No,
face.
You know what?
Fred was way more backlit than you are.
Okay.
Let me change that too, by the way.
In your opinion, do you feel that regardless of the subject matter or the discipline that each of us are into that we're looking to market, that writing a book of some sort is a critical step in the information marketing process? Is that one of the first things we should be looking to do?
Well, I don't know. There are many critical steps, I think, but I will say this, that for my fees, for my speaking engagements, and for the rest of for coaching and anything else, my fees are much higher because I have books out. Let's just say that. It's like a big sales brochure for your work. And, I will say this, and I've talked to Fred about this and joked with him about it. A lot of people buy your book and don't read it. It's sitting next to their bed, or they just know you have a book out. And that's good enough. It seems that's good enough because sometimes people say, oh, I haven't read any of your books, but will you come and do a talk for us because we heard you have books out, and that's it. So it's a credibility enhancer, definitely. It's a good sales brochure for you. I've gotten invitations from all over the world, and some people have no idea. I do speaking 2 or 3 times a month, and some people have no idea I do speaking. They just say, I read your book. Is it possible I can invite you to Yugoslavia to do a workshop? Do you do speaking? And so it's a really good sales brochure and credibility enhancer. I don't know, I know some people without books that have been on the speaking circuit or have fine, thriving coaching businesses, or like you do your voiceover stuff, and
Bill,
I don't know, critical. It's a good one.
hey, Bill, but the point is that now he's got a little bit of a different situation, which the answer I agree with you, but think of the topic. He is training other voiceover artists how to do voice. Does a print book lend itself to that material?
Yeah, there's Patsy Rodenberg, The Right to Speak, is a really nice book about that. She was on Fresh Air being interviewed by Terry Gross about helping people speak and use their voices. So, I think anytime you want to establish yourself as an expert, you ought to be the blog recognized expert, the podcast recognized expert, the book writing expert, and books are the top thing. Books and television, mass media appearances are the best way to establish yourself as an expert. Dr. Phil was a jury consultant, and he met Oprah, and then she had him on her show, and all of a sudden he was an expert.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
He specialized before in jury consultation, then he became an expert on life consultation, life coaching. And so I think when his first book came out, his reputation exploded. Being on Oprah, there's only a certain amount of people to see on Oprah. Not everybody watches Oprah. But as soon as his book came out and became a bestseller, he was an expert. Deepak Chopra. Who heard of Deepak Chopra? He was a physician in a hospital. He wrote a book. He became an expert. So I think if you want to become the perceived expert in voiceover, whatever it is that you're trying to be an expert in, then you should write a book. It's a good idea.
Okay. Other questions for Bill?
Bill, this is Mike Potter.
Okay.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Mike Potter here. Can you talk a bit about the process of writing? I'm on my 10th book. All of mine have been self-published in the past, and I'm working on my first ebook. And I'm finding the process excruciating because I've got a full-time practice. I'm a scoutmaster, a dad. I've got all these different directions I'm going in, and I get up at 3 in the morning and try to spend about an hour, roughly, if I can, on it. But I find the process excruciating like you did. What did you come up with as sort of a good rule of thumb or guideposts?
Well, again, Fred referred to this briefly, but the process of self-publishing is different from the process of selling your book to a publisher.
Right.
And that is, I never write the book before I sell it.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. You only write a small sample of the book, which you've probably already done for your next project, or you could do, again, excruciating as it is, you could write 2 or 3 chapters or sections of the book, and then you write a proposal. That's the key to this. I have never written a book without selling it first.
Now, Bill, by the way, one of our things that we're putting together is that a coaching program to do this kind of stuff. You're working on that, I guess, now that the book is done, right?
That's right, exactly. I just sat down this morning and made the sequence, which I will send you in a little while after this call.
Tell people about that, because not just to sort of, not pitching them on the concept, but so that they will understand how you do your work and how you get paid, and give people some insight on that whole coaching concept.
Well, I mean, this is a little different and a little slightly to the side topic, but I got to a certain point. I was a psychotherapist. I had a full-time practice. I had 4 kids. So I wrote 10 books in 10 years while I was supervising people, plus had a full-time practice, plus I was going out and speaking on occasion. Mm-hmm. And, it was a crazy life. And I just slept less. That is the key to that. I slept less. But here was the nice part. Because I had a practice, if I sold a book, a little chunk of money came in to help me create a little space. I wasn't so worried about paying the bills or the soccer camp for the kids or whatever it may be. I had money that came in from selling that book, so I knew I was going to get another chunk of money when I finished that book too, and hopefully if it sold, I was going to get even more chunks of money, and gradually over time, every 6 months, I get a chunk of money where I don't do any more work. That's that's really nice. When you have royalties coming in, passive income, you can do that with the internet, but you can also do it with print publishing. So I made that investment of time when my kids were younger so that I could have a little more time with them as they grew up, and I didn't have to get up at 3 in the morning, or what I would do is stay up late at night. That's my preferred mode. You get up in the morning, I'm not great in the morning. So that's the first thing. But as time went on, I made my practice down to half practice when my speaking and my royalties from books were enough to support that. And then I started doing more supervision and even less practice. And I was down to a 3rd practice and a 5th practice. And then I stopped practicing altogether about 7 years ago.
Well, that's
I
kind
stopped
of the direction.
psychotherapy practice because this other stuff, the income from it, was good enough. Recently, I decided, gee, I travel 3 times a month. And I love doing it. I make thousands of dollars a day when I speak. But I'd rather stay home and be with my loved ones more. And so I created 2 coaching groups. First one, and I had 10 people in it, and it was $500 a month to learn how to do this stuff that Fred's teaching you to do, to learn how to write a book, to become a speaker, and to do internet-based marketing and sales and create passive income. And so I had 10 people in that group. That's $5,000 a month. And then it was so successful that I started a second branch of it, and I put 12 people in it because there's always 1 or 2 dropouts. And so I created these 2 groups, and that's $10,000, or it was $11,000 for a while, a month before I even leave my house. And there's 4 phone calls, 2 phone calls for each group per month, and then they have access to all my products. And like Fred, once I get going on this stuff, I have hundreds of products that are online and you can just get access to. So I don't have to do any more work, and those products are creating money for me. So I got up at 3 in the morning, or stayed up till 3 in the morning myself. I did it the other way, and I invested a bit of time so that I could create more passive income and more time later on. And that's what Fred and I are going to do. We're going to create this coaching membership site where we'll put all our products up, which are worth thousands and thousands of dollars, and we'll give access to people for a couple $100 a month. Plus, we'll do some individualized coaching with them and give them access to some more specialized programs. So I think that's a model that maybe you should all look at for the future. Once you establish your reputation, I couldn't have done this at the beginning of my writing career because people didn't know who I was and they wouldn't pay that kind of money for my expertise. But now, because I've had, I'm just finished my 31st book, I have some credibility in book writing because I speak, all over the world, thousands of dollars a day. For that, I have credibility in that. And because I've learned from Fred and a couple of other people how to do this internet-based marketing and reputation building as well as passive income creation, people want that stuff. And then you can sell your coaching services, if you will, or your instructional services. And the key is to create this stuff in automated systems so it doesn't take you a boatload of time. And, the writing the book is going to take time no matter what, but it's a one-time writing the book and editing it and getting it out. And after that, if you do your marketing right, that book is going to create money for you. I'm not so worried that my 401k became a 201k because I have another 401k, and that is my royalties are going to come in till my dotage. So I'm so excited about the stuff that I learned from Fred over the years, and he was one of the first people I ever heard this stuff from. I'm thinking, why isn't every author doing this? Because some people don't make that much money from their books, but they can make a lot of money from the auxiliary things that they put up on the web to supplement their book income.
I think Michael had a follow-up.
Yeah.
My question had to do with when you're staring at the screen, the process of writing. Do you have a kind of a mental checklist or organization method that you like?
I think this is the book, right? Write as a verb?
That's exactly right. But I'll say 3 things about it, I think, probably. The first thing that I'll say is that I don't love diagnoses. I'm a psychotherapist, but I didn't use diagnosis as much as I could avoid it. I sometimes had to use it for insurance purposes. But if I had to say, I have a slight case of ADD or ADHD. And so it was a little difficult for me to sit down and focus on. I'd rather be talking and interacting with people. That live thing was much easier for me. So I found a strategy, and this isn't for you maybe, but I think everybody has to find their own way of doing it. I would listen to loud rock music. I wrote. And, you know, my partner would say, how can you do that? Doesn't that distract you from the writing? I said, no, it actually helps me focus. I tune the music out, and I'm focused on the screen. And I just wrote a book that was a little difficult for me to write. It was a different kind of book. It wasn't a sit down and write straight narrative. I just finished that book, and I had to listen to loud rock music while I was doing it. I haven't had to do that for the last few books before that. I learned a process of writing so I could focus. So that's number one. You got to find your own process. Some people, I listened to Malcolm Gladwell, who's written a number of books and a number of articles, and he said he learned to write in a crowded newsroom. And when he sat down at his home, once he was independent enough, he could write just wherever he wanted, and he quit his job, he couldn't do it. And he had to go out to a cafe and have people around him. So you have to figure out what your process is. That's number one. I think number two, different from self-publishing, and this, I think, Mike and Fred, you know, since you've done so much of this was frustrating for me when I first started writing print books, is that I had to write a proposal. I couldn't just write the book. I had to think about what the book was about, put it on paper, and outline it really detailed, and make a good case for why each chapter needed to be where it was, and why the book was like this. And that used to frustrate me. I think, it takes me 3 months to write a proposal. I'd rather just write the book.
Yeah.
And the publishers said, no, we need a proposal. That's the way we sell the book. The agents sell the book to the publishers. That's the way the publishers, the editors sell it to their publishing company. And you need to write a proposal. And after a number of those where I was just frustrated that I got to get through this proposal so I can get to the book, I realized the book is way easier if I have to write a better proposal. That is, I pre-think about the book. And I can do that not getting up at 3 in the morning. I can do that while I'm sitting waiting for my kid to get off school and I'm waiting in the car. I can just jot down an outline and start to write a proposal. When I write a better proposal, the book is way faster. And the second thing, of course, about proposals is I pre-sold the book, and then I don't have to write the book. If the book is not going to sell, I'm not going to bother to write it. So I pre-sold the book. So the proposal has two values, but when you're talking about the process of writing, if I've thought about it so clearly, well, the other thing is if I've taught about it 100 times, if I've done 100 presentations on this topic, the book is way easier to write. So the second answer to your question about the process of writing is the more I pre-think and pre-plan the book, which is not my big forte, as I said, with a little ADD. Fred's a little like this. I can tell he's kind of sparky. And he'll come up with an idea, and if it's great, if he can do it right then, that's great. But if it takes a lot of advanced planning, I tend to get bogged down. He tends to get bogged down because it's easy to get scattered and distracted. So writing and thinking about the book, writing an outline, a really detailed one, and thinking about the book very carefully or presenting on it a lot makes the book much easier to write in the end. And then the third thing is I just found a way, and this is vague. I'm sorry it's going to be vague, to get the words from my brain and my heart out onto paper after doing it. And it's like anything. It's like that 10,000 hours or 10 years expertise research that you see that's been touted recently. Just doing it. You've written a number of books, and what happened for me is at 17, I found that it essentially takes me as much time to write as it does to think now. And it used to be not that way. It used to take me a lot more time to write than it did to think. I could think it really well, but then when it went on a paper, it was clumsy and flat, and I had to rewrite it a bunch of times. Now, first draft is very, very good. And I found that pathway, it's like going through the woods, and, first you have to just find your way through the woods and break off the branches. If you go the same pathway through the woods a bunch of times, you've made an easier path, and that's the third thing I can say about the process of writing.
I found two things that yesterday kind of brought it back home to me. One of them was Fred encouraged us in writing something we were working on yesterday that we don't have to make it perfect the first time. Just get something down. And the second thing was that lately I've been starting almost all of my chapters, at least initially, with the chapter heading being a question mark, being a question.
That's a great idea.
And then breaking down the subheadings, and then going back and kind of filling it in seems to work better for me.
Right.
Gives me a little forward momentum. And then I might end up changing the name of that chapter, but if I start with a question, like what the heck is such and such, then I start, explaining it, or in the words of Ricky Ricardo, explaining it to someone who has no clue what the topic is.
Yeah, well, I think that's right. The human brain responds better to questions than it does to blank screens or statements. I absolutely agree with that.
By the way, I'm a smooth jazz guy.
By the way, Bill O'Hanlon has jammed with Sean, who we saw. We went to see Sean perform last night.
Yeah, you did. Okay, great.
And Bill used to actually perform live and get paid for it.
That's great.
Yeah, so I like some smooth jazz too, but for some reason the writing it really has to be loud rock music to distract.
I'll have to try that,
or to focus me or something.
Okay. Any other questions for Bill?
Can I just ask for a clarification? When you talked about writing a proposal before actually doing the writing, does that go for self-publishing as well? I mean, if you were going to try to sell it over the internet?
I would hate to do it, but if I were going to self-publish again, I would do it. I would do a proposal because I learned the value of it. That's what I was saying. I used to just be philosophically opposed to them because it's like extra work, and I just want to get to the writing of the book. It seemed to me easier to write the book than it did to write the proposal because it's like the old saying, sorry to write you such a long letter, I didn't have time to write you a shorter one. Yeah. Because if you have time to think about it, you can really condense your thoughts and make it really focus and hone. And I used to think, well, it's easier to write the book than it is to write the summary of the book. But yes, I would recommend, if you have that kind of wherewithal and discipline, to write a proposal before you write a print or self-published book.
Hey, Bill, isn't it interesting that I think we have a program on that, on proposal writing, don't we?
We do have a program on that. It's about to be released.
Yeah, and so this is something that, Bill is a big believer in, and obviously, in order to get into the traditional publishing world, this is an absolute necessity. This is not an optional item.
No, not an optional item. If you're gonna do a print book that you sell to publish, but I think what you just said, Bill, I reluctantly am recommending, even if you self-publish, even if you e-book publish, you write a proposal first, because I think that pre-planning and pre-thinking, the other thing that goes into a proposal is your marketing plan. So you're going to be pre-thinking about your marketing as well as the structure and content of the book, and I think both of those make your work down the line, it cuts it in half for me. It cuts the work in half.
Perfect.
If I don't have a good proposal, that is, I've written one, but it's not very well thought out, the book takes me way longer to write. If I do have a good proposal, the book is very more condensed in the writing, much more quick. I know where I'm going. I know when I'm lost. I know when I'm on track. Really helpful to write.
Professor William O'Hanlon, thank you very much for your time. And any more questions
here?
Dr.
Kalik. I hope you all have a good time. I was sitting there eating breakfast one day, so I recognized the room. So.
Hey, well, I will see you shortly. So have a good trip to Hilton Head, and I will see you when you get back.
Yeah, all right.
Thanks buddy.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. So now, watch this. I now stop.